Tonight, we dive into the bill that's thrown Washington into chaos. President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. It's a sweeping overhaul: taxes, border, defense, economy, no stone left unturned. Republicans are calling it a historic win. Democrats are in full meltdown, trying every trick to stop it. The bill is massive, over 900 pages, promising to reshape the nation and spark outrage from coast to coast. Buckle up, this is the political circus at its wildest. What's in this bill? Depends who you ask. Supporters call it a cure-all: permanent tax cuts, military boosts, border security, and a rollback of green subsidies. Critics see a disaster: giveaways to the rich, cuts to social programs, and a ballooning national debt. The bill is pure partisanship. No compromise, just a bold vision from one side daring the other to stop them. Every line is a victory for some, a horror for others. In today's Washington, nuance is dead. This bill is the new battleground. As the bill heads to the House, the drama peaks. Republicans have a slim majority. Democrats vow resistance, but their tactics are mostly for show. Moderate Republicans grumble, but history says they'll fall in line. The opposition's last stand is more spectacle than substance. Get ready for a vote that's all but decided, yet the meltdown will be unforgettable. The heart of the bill? Tax cuts. Big, bold, and permanent. Middle-class relief: no tax on tips, deductions for overtime. Supporters call it a win for workers. Critics say it's a windfall for the wealthy and corporations, with debt as the price tag. The bill bets on supply-side economics: let people keep more, and the economy grows. It's a fundamental shift, felt from kitchen tables to boardrooms. Love it or hate it, it's a game changer. Next up, border security gets a blank check. Billions for the wall, tech upgrades, and more agents. Trump's promise in action. Supporters call it overdue. Critics call it cruel and ineffective. The bill militarizes the border, making security a top national priority. It's the most Trumpian move yet: big, tough, and unapologetic. The energy and environment section of the bill is what we're calling the Great Green Rollback. It takes a legislative sledgehammer to many of the climate policies of the Biden era, particularly the green energy subsidies tucked away in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act. The bill systematically defunds, repeals, and rolls back billions of dollars in tax credits for wind turbines, solar panels, and electric vehicles. The philosophy here is simple and unapologetically pro-fossil fuel. This bill aims to reverse that course by unleashing the power of American oil, gas, and coal. For environmental groups, this is nothing short of a declaration of war on the planet. Supporters argue that affordable and reliable energy is the lifeblood of the American economy. It's America first, applied to every barrel of oil and ton of coal. Now we venture into the part of the bill that has the Democrats clutching their pearls with more fervor than ever before: the changes to the social safety net. This is where the bill gets its reputation for being either fiscally responsible or brutally cruel, depending on your political persuasion. The legislation proposes the most significant reforms to federal entitlement programs in decades, with major cuts and new requirements for programs like Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, better known as food stamps. The GOP is framing these changes as common-sense measures to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, and to encourage work. The specifics are a conservative's dream and a progressive's nightmare. For Medicaid, the bill introduces new work requirements for able-bodied, childless adults, mandating that they work or participate in job training to receive benefits. It also calls for more frequent eligibility checks to ensure that only those who truly qualify are on the rolls. Similarly, for food stamps, the bill tightens work requirements and cracks down on states with high error rates. The stated goal is to transform these programs from a permanent way of life into a temporary bridge back to self-sufficiency, promoting what supporters call a culture of independence rather than one of dependency on the government. As you can imagine, the opposition is portraying this as a heartless attack on the most vulnerable. They are running ads featuring sad-looking seniors and worried mothers, claiming that millions will lose their health coverage and children will go hungry because of these draconian cuts. They argue that work requirements are punitive and ineffective, as many recipients are already working in low-wage jobs or are unable to work due to circumstances the bureaucracy doesn't account for. They see this not as reform, but as a deliberate effort to punish the poor in order to pay for tax cuts for the rich, a classic tale of reverse Robin Hood. Beneath the heated rhetoric, this represents a fundamental philosophical clash over the role of government. One side believes that the social safety net has become a hammock, trapping people in poverty and disincentivizing work. They believe that personal responsibility and a strong economy are the best anti-poverty programs. The other side believes the safety net is a vital lifeline in a brutal economy, and that the government has a moral obligation to provide for its citizens basic needs without judgment or onerous requirements. This bill firmly plants its flag on the side of personal responsibility, and in doing so, it has ignited one of the most emotional and contentious debates in the entire legislative battle. Finally, beyond the big-ticket items of taxes, border security, and spending cuts, the One Big Beautiful Bill is also a legislative grab bag, stuffed with a dizzying array of other provisions that touch every corner of American life. It's honestly a testament to the bill's sheer ambition, a collection of smaller-scale policies that are designed to please various constituencies and, well, provoke a whole new set of opponents. It's in these miscellaneous sections where you find some of the most interesting and most controversial elements of the entire package. It's a political junk drawer of goodies for supporters and grenades for the opposition. For instance, the bill makes a significant push for school choice, creating a federal voucher program that parents could use to send their children to private or religious schools. This is a massive victory for education reformers and a direct challenge to the public school establishment and teachers' unions, who see it as an existential threat. The bill also wades deep into the culture wars, with provisions that restrict federal funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI initiatives, which supporters call a necessary corrective to divisive and radical ideologies that have infiltrated government and education. There's also a significant boost in defense spending because, of course, there is. The bill funnels billions more to the Pentagon for new equipment, pay raises for the troops, and strategic initiatives aimed at countering adversaries like China. On the other hand, it also includes some surprising bipartisan additions, likely thrown in to secure a few wavering votes. For example, one provision raises the cap on the state and local tax, or SALT deduction, a move that actually benefits taxpayers in high-tax blue states, a clever if cynical piece of political maneuvering. It's this mix of partisan red meat and strategic sweeteners that makes the bill so complex. All told, this legislative behemoth is more than just a bill. It's a comprehensive vision for the country, for better or for worse. From education to national defense, from the Farm Belt to the federal courthouse, its reach is enormous. It's a package designed not just to tweak policy, but to fundamentally shift the direction of the nation. Each of its many pieces is a battleground in itself, creating a multi-front war that the Democrats and their few rogue Republican allies are woefully unprepared to fight. It's big, it's beautiful, and it's barreling down the tracks, and the opposition is about to find out what happens when they are standing in its way. So, the Democrats pulled out the oldest, most tired tactic in the book, the filibuster. Or at least the modern, pathetic version of it. It's a show, a piece of political theater designed to signal virtue to the base without actually accomplishing anything. At one point, a senator launched into a lengthy, tearful reading of the children's book, Green Eggs and Ham. While they were busy with their story time, Republican senators were spotted taking naps. Ultimately, the Filibuster Follies achieved nothing. All the Democrats managed to do was burn up floor time. They thought they were waging a heroic last stand, but from the outside, it just looked sad. When dramatic readings failed, the Democrats shifted to the vote-a-rama. It's a marathon session where senators propose unlimited amendments. The Democrats' strategy was to force Republicans into tough, politically painful votes, hoping to create attack ads. The amendments came fast, each one more sanctimonious than the last. With iron discipline, Republicans voted down nearly every Democratic amendment. The Democrats got sound bites but looked powerless. They were building a campaign message but losing the legislative war. In the end, the vote-a-rama was a public demonstration of futility. They turned a serious process into a political stunt. So, when all else fails, and when you've truly exhausted every last sensible idea, there's one final, desperate tactic left in the procedural toolbox of the truly pathetic: forcing the clerks to read the entire bill aloud. This is the legislative equivalent of a toddler's temper tantrum, a move designed for no other purpose than to grind everything to a halt through sheer mind-numbing boredom. And so, in a moment of peak desperation, the Democrats invoked this archaic rule: They demanded that all 900-plus pages of the one big beautiful bill be read word for word into the official record. They were going to bore this bill to death. What followed was one of the most surreal and pointless spectacles in modern Senate history. A team of Senate clerks, the unsung heroes of this story, began the Herculean task. For over 12 excruciating hours they read. They read through dense legalese about tax code revisions. They read through dry, technical language about border fence specifications. They read through endless clauses on spending appropriations and regulatory changes. The chamber, once a stage for grand speeches, was transformed into the world's most boring audiobook recording session. Senators from both parties came and went, looking dazed and confused as the monotonous drone of the reading echoed through the halls. The Democrats sold this as a heroic act of transparency, a way to show the American people what horrors were lurking in the fine print of this monstrous bill. But come on, nobody was fooled. This wasn't about transparency, it was about delay. It was a petty, petulant act of obstructionism that served only to inconvenience the Senate staff and provide a few funny clips for late-night talk shows. While the clerks' voices grew hoarse, the gears of government ground to a halt. The business of the nation was put on pause so that one party could throw a procedural fit. It was a stunning display of their priorities. And what was the grand result of this great bill read-a-thon? Absolutely nothing. The bill wasn't changed. No votes were swayed. The sun rose the next day. The reading eventually, mercifully, came to an end, and the legislative process picked up right where it left off. The bill was not defeated by boredom. It was not shamed into submission by the public recitation of its contents. The only thing the Democrats achieved was cementing their reputation as the party of pointless stunts. They had their moment of obstruction, their 12 hours of fame. But in the end, the bill was still there, beautiful and unbothered, ready for its close-up. While their colleagues were busy with procedural shenanigans on the Senate floor, the rest of the Democratic Party was engaged in another critical mission, a full-scale, coordinated media meltdown. Every Democrat with access to a camera or a microphone was dispatched to unleash a torrent of outrage, a symphony of indignation aimed at convincing the American public that the sky was, in fact, falling. They appeared on every cable news show that would have them, their faces etched with a carefully practiced expression of grave concern. They wrote furious op-eds. They posted frantic, all-caps messages on social media. It was a communication strategy based entirely on shouting fire in a crowded theater. The language they used was nothing short of apocalyptic. This wasn't just a bad bill. It was an assault on American values. It wasn't just fiscally irresponsible. It was a dagger aimed at the heart of our children's future. It wasn't just a policy disagreement. It was a moral stain on the soul of our nation. Every statement was more breathless and hyperbolic than the last. They were competing with each other to see who could sound the most horrified, who could paint the most terrifying picture of a post-big, beautiful bill America. It was a masterclass in catastrophizing, a non-stop performance of political anguish. They held press conferences on the steps of the Capitol, flanked by activists holding pre-printed signs. They told heart-wrenching stories of constituents who would supposedly be ruined by the bill, even though it hadn't even passed yet. They warned of economic collapse, environmental ruin, and social decay, all wrapped up in one neat legislative package. The goal was to create a wave of public backlash so massive, so powerful, that it would force Republicans to back down. They were trying to scare the country into submission, hoping that fear would succeed where legislative strategy had failed. It was a campaign built on panic, a desperate attempt to change the political weather. But the storm never came. Most Americans, it seems, were busy living their lives, more concerned with the price of gas and groceries than with the latest round of partisan hysteria from Washington. The Symphony of Outrage largely played to an empty hall. The media allies of the Democratic Party amplified the message, of course, but beyond their progressive bubble, the warnings fell on deaf ears. The constant, high-pitched alarmism had lost its power to shock. It was just more noise from a political class that seems to exist in a permanent state of crisis. The Democrats screamed their warnings, but the country, for the most part, just shrugged. With legislative options exhausted, the Democrats shifted to a cable news campaign. The goal? Frame the narrative for future elections. Every interview became a chance to test attack lines. The message? Republicans are evil and will hurt you. Segments highlighted potential losers, creating a misleading narrative of GOP cruelty. Accuracy was secondary. This blitz was a masterclass in hypocrisy. Nuance was absent. It was good versus evil, with Democrats as heroes. This media campaign may shape the political landscape to come. They lost the battle, but aimed to win the perception war. In a narrowly divided Congress, weren't there any principled conservatives left to join the Democrats? This brings us to the rogue Republican, the so-called moderates. The mainstream media loves to praise them. In reality, they looked deeply concerned while doing nothing of consequence. They had the Republican base demanding loyalty and their own desperate need to be seen as independent. So they dithered, expressing serious reservations. Their grand strategy was to try and have it both ways. It's a delicate dance, and they are terrible dancers. They tried to matter, but their attempts were doomed from the start. They weren't a firewall, they were a speed bump. For a tragicomic case study of the moderate Republican, look no further than Susan Collins. As the bill made its way through the Senate, Senator Collins was on a journey of concern. She gave heartfelt speeches and held somber press gaggles, detailing her objections. She even proposed an amendment to raise taxes for a hospital stabilization fund. The Democrats unanimously voted against it. Betrayed, Collins was left twisting in the wind. Her grand gesture was swatted down, and it was a brutal, public humiliation. The bill passed anyway, accomplishing nothing except alienating both sides. Collins became the poster child for moderate Republicans drifting into a political no-man's land. The House Freedom Caucus, the hardline conservatives, grumbled that the bill wasn't nearly conservative enough. They looked at the tax cuts and said, why not more? They looked at the spending cuts and said, that's it? Firebrands like Chip Roy and Ralph Norman threatened to vote no, arguing it didn't slash enough spending. This created a two-front war for Republican leadership. But in the end, after closed-door meetings and arm twisting, most fell in line. A few held out, but it wasn't enough to stop the momentum. They chose the win over the principle. And what was the response from the top to all this internal dissent? How did President Donald J. Trump, the architect of this beautiful bill, handle the rogue Republicans and the conservative grumblers? Well, he did what he does best. He logged onto Truth Social and started a good, old-fashioned RINO Roundup. While Republican leaders were trying to gently coax the dissenters back into the fold, Trump took a slightly different approach. He unleashed a torrent of posts, calling them out by name, questioning their loyalty and labeling them as sad, pathetic losers who were letting down the American people. It was subtle, like a sledgehammer. The so-called moderates got the worst of it. Senators Collins and Murkowski were branded as Democrat-light and total disasters. Any House Republican who dared to express even a whisper of doubt was immediately put on blast, their voting records scrutinized, and their conservative credentials publicly shredded. Trump mocked their concerns about the deficit as fake and phony, accusing them of just wanting to get good press from the fake news media. He made it crystal clear, you were either with him and the big beautiful bill, or you were with the swamp. There was no middle ground, no room for dissent. You were on the team, or you were the enemy. This public shaming campaign was brutally effective. It put immense pressure on the wavering Republicans, who were suddenly flooded with angry calls and emails from their own constituents, all repeating the president's talking points. It's one thing to be criticized by Chuck Schumer. It's another thing entirely to be branded a RINO, a Republican in name only, by the leader of your party. The fear of a primary challenge, funded and endorsed by Trump himself, is the most powerful motivator in the modern GOP. One negative post on Truth Social can end a political career, and every single one of them knew it. This, folks, is the new reality of the Republican Party. It's a party that demands and enforces loyalty from the top down. The days of rogue senators and independent mavericks holding up a president's agenda are over. The great RINO migration isn't just about moderates leaving the party. It's about the party leaving them behind. Trump's social media barrage was a warning shot to anyone thinking of stepping out of line in the future. He successfully quelled the rebellion, not through quiet negotiation, but through loud, public, and relentless pressure. The rogues were rounded up, the grumblers were silenced, and the path was cleared for the bill's final, triumphant passage. As the big, beautiful bill moved toward its final vote, Congress became a high-stakes slumber party. Welcome to the vote-a-rama, the crown jewel of the congressional circus, where the legislative process goes off the rails. For 18 hours, the Senate became a surreal landscape of bleary-eyed politicians and discarded pizza boxes. It was a marathon of procedural madness. The Democrats hoped to catch Republicans snoozing and accidentally pass something, but the GOP maintained iron discipline. All they did was force everyone to stay up late to watch them lose. It was a circus, and the Democrats were the sleepy clowns. While the politicians were mainlining caffeine on Capitol Hill, another all-night marathon was taking place just a few blocks away, the cable news meltdown. On the networks that catered to the perpetually panicked, the passage of the big beautiful bill was being treated not as a legislative event, but as an extinction-level one. Their studios were transformed into panic rooms, command centers for coordinating the national freakout. Panels of grim-faced experts were assembled, each one competing to offer the most terrifying prediction about the bill's consequences. It was a 24-hour doom-and-gloom telethon, and the hosts were ringing the alarm bell with the manic energy of a doomsday prepper who just found out the bunker is out of canned beans. The chyrons at the bottom of the screen told the whole story. Democracy in peril. GOP rams through trillion-dollar tax scam. Millions to lose healthcare as Senate works overnight. Every update was delivered with breathless urgency, as if a meteor were hurtling toward Earth. Anchors, their voices strained with faux gravitas, interviewed weeping activists and furious Democratic strategists. They cut to live shots of the Capitol, treating the procedural votes with the same intensity as a hostage crisis. They weren't reporting the news, they were narrating a horror movie of their own creation, and they were the main characters. The most entertaining part was watching the pundits try to process their own failure. For weeks, they had been predicting that the bill would collapse. They had assured their viewers that the moderates would hold the line, that the Freedom Caucus would rebel, that public pressure would force the GOP to retreat. And now, watching it all come together for Trump, they were in a state of shock, denial, and pure, unadulterated rage. You could see the 5 stages of grief playing out in real time. They blamed Trump, they blamed McConnell's ghost, they blamed Russian bots, they blamed the media for not being negative enough. They blamed everyone but themselves for misreading the political moment so spectacularly. This wasn't journalism. It was a collective therapy session for a political movement that can't believe it lost. The cable news meltdown was a perfect reflection of the progressive bubble, a closed-loop system where every setback is a catastrophe and every Republican victory is an unprecedented assault on decency. They weren't informing their viewers, they were validating their fears. They were creating a safe space of shared outrage, a panic room where they could all huddle together and lament the darkness descending upon the Republic. Meanwhile, the rest of America was either asleep or watching something more entertaining, like a fishing show. As the hours dragged on, the mood among the opposition shifted to a slow-motion meltdown. The performative anger gave way to despair. You could see the fight drain out of them with every failed amendment. The low point came when one congresswoman began to cry during a speech. She was crying because her side had lost. This collapse was the predictable end to a strategy based on emotion rather than power. It's a game of power, numbers, and will. And as the final vote approached, it was clear which was more valuable in Washington. After the drama and speeches, the moment of truth arrived. The clerks called for the final vote, the numbers climbed, the final tally was announced, and the gavel came down. Cheers erupted from the Republican side. They had delivered the win. On the other side, there was only silence. The passage of the bill was a political statement. The bill was heading to the president's desk. The GOP victorious, the Democrats were left to wonder how they had accomplished absolutely nothing. The dust settles on Capitol Hill. The big, beautiful bill is now law. So, who's celebrating? American taxpayers are big winners. Millions of families and workers get to keep more of their own money. Corporations and small businesses can hire, invest, and grow. Also winning are those who believe America should have borders. The American energy sector is back in business. The biggest winner of all is President Donald J. Trump. He promised to cut taxes, build the wall, and unleash American energy, and he delivered. His supporters are ecstatic. They see a president who fights and wins. The winners believe in a stronger, more prosperous, and more secure America. Now, for every winner, there must be a loser. And folks, the losers in this story are the Democratic Party and the entire progressive movement. They threw everything they had at this bill and failed spectacularly, exposed as utterly powerless. Their entire agenda has been thrown onto the scrap heap of history. Also taking a big L are the government bureaucrats and the administrators of the welfare state. The new work requirements mean less power for them. Let's not forget the rogue Republicans who tried to play both sides and ended up pleasing no one. And of course, a special place in the losers' circle belongs to the cable news panic merchants. They bet the farm on this bill failing, and they lost. It's a sad song, but it's one they're going to have to get used to hearing. The big beautiful bill will add trillions to the national debt, according to the Congressional Budget Office. The opposition screams fiscal irresponsibility, warning of a debt crisis. But nobody who matters actually cares. Democrats have zero credibility, having printed money and passed trillion-dollar bills. Republicans claim tax cuts will pay for themselves through economic growth. Ultimately, the price tag is a sideshow. Voters care about paychecks, border security, and gas prices. For supporters, that's all that matters. So there you have it. The battle is over. Standing tall is the one big, beautiful bill, ready to be signed into law. It was a complete triumph for President Donald J. Trump and the America First movement. This was a win for the ages, a signature achievement that will define this presidency. It's a return to economic freedom, national sovereignty, and unapologetic patriotism. This is the agenda the American people voted for, and against all odds, it has been delivered. It is, in every sense of the word, a huge win. And so, as President Trump prepares to sign this historic piece of legislation, the winners can take a well-deserved victory lap. It is a symbol of promises kept, of battles won, and of a new era of American greatness. While the champagne corks are popping, the other side is left to sift through the wreckage. The echoes of their meltdown will reverberate through the halls of Washington for years to come. This wasn't just a legislative loss, it was a moral and strategic collapse. Their entire playbook was exposed as a collection of tired, ineffective stunts. They forgot how to actually practice the art of politics. This failure will force a painful reckoning within the Democratic Party. The echoes of this failure are the sounds of a party lost in the wilderness. The echoes of their failure will serve as a constant reminder of what happens when you substitute performance for power and outrage for a plan. The passage of the big beautiful bill does more than just enact a series of policies. It fundamentally reshapes the political landscape of the nation. It solidifies a new paradigm in Washington, one that has been emerging for years but is now undeniably the new reality. This is the era of political hardball, where party discipline, loyalty, and the unapologetic use of power are the only currencies that matter. The quaint, old-fashioned notions of bipartisanship, compromise, and institutional norms have been swept away. The bill's journey through Congress was a masterclass in this new reality. It was a demonstration that a determined majority, led by a strong executive, can achieve its goals, regardless of the opposition's wailing and gnashing of teeth. This new landscape has profound implications for both parties. For the Republicans, it confirms that the party belongs to Donald Trump. His agenda is their agenda. His priorities are their priorities. The few remaining moderates and rogues have been shown the door, their influence completely nullified. The party is more unified, more focused, and more ideologically coherent than ever before, all centered around the America First platform. This bill's success will embolden them, proving that their strategy of ignoring the mainstream media and catering directly to their base is a winning formula. They have tasted victory, and they will be hungry for more. For the Democrats, the new landscape is a barren and hostile wasteland. They are facing an existential choice. They can either adapt to the new rules of the game, which would require a level of strategic ruthlessness they seem incapable of, or they can continue to be the party of performative, pathetic resistance. Their current path leads only to more losses and growing irrelevance. They must find a way to reconnect with the working-class voters they have abandoned and offer a vision that is more than just a litany of grievances and a laundry list of things they are against. In this new landscape, simply not being Trump is not enough to win. This is a more polarized, more confrontational, and arguably more honest form of politics. The battle lines are clearly drawn. There is no murky middle ground. You are on one side or the other. The big beautiful bill was the first major battle of this new era, and its outcome has set the tone for all the fights to come. The political landscape has been permanently altered. The old maps are useless. This is Trump's America, and everyone in Washington, from the most powerful senator to the most junior intern, is now forced to navigate its new and unforgiving terrain. Our story comes to a close, but the great American political circus never ends. The big beautiful bill may be law, but the show goes on. The Democrats will campaign on its repeal, warning of dire consequences. President Trump will embark on a victory tour, touting his historic achievement. The bill will become a key part of his political mythology. We, the American people, are the audience for this grand, chaotic show. Some will celebrate, others will protest, but the political drama will continue. Politics is a messy, brutal, and often absurd business. Until then, good night, and God bless the circus.